This happened too many times in our day-to-day lives throughout history, as well as in TV series and movies, that the person everyone trusts and everyone wish to follow, who is talented, who actually understand what people need, don't get promoted to the leadership position, but instead, the person who's clearly less capable, less wise, less courageous, and very often less decent as a human being does. Isn't that frustrating? And this frustration is shared across cultures, across history. Let me share with you the story about a 1,000-mile horse. So every Chinese knows a version of this story. As you can imagine, a horse that runs fast and non-stop for 1,000 miles was precious in ancient times. Any king would give so much reward for anyone who could give him one of these horses. But it seems like that is a very difficult task, for nobody could find such a horse. After a while, it seems like this might not be possible. Maybe 1,000-mile horse doesn't even exist. Maybe that's just a myth. Bole, who's known for recognizing great horses. One day, he was walking on the side of the road. He saw this horse carrying a heavy cart up a very steep mountain. This horse was exhausted. Its legs were damaged, knees buckled, sweat pouring from his body. And halfway up the mountain, the horse struggles to keep going. And the owner of the horse was very disappointed. And he beats the horse and he screams, "This horse is so useless. Only if I had a better one, I wouldn't have used this one." But when Bole sees, he saw a 1,000-mile horse, he was shocked. He ran to the horse and hugged the horse. He cried because he recognized a great talent being mistreated by an owner who did not know how to utilize the talent, who could not even recognize the talent while right in front of it. So Bole bought the horse and gave it to a king. The king at first did not see anything unique or extraordinary about the horse, but he trusted Bole. And Bole told him to help the horse recover, look after the horse. Indeed, after the horse recovered, it was a 1,000-mile horse. So this story sparked a question during that era, is that perhaps 1,000-mile horses are not rare, but it is Bole who can recognize the talent that is rare. Maybe if we had more Bole, we could have found so many more 1,000-mile horses. So for thousands of years, every individual who felt that their talent was overlooked, that their potential was undermined, resonate with the 1,000-mile horse. They share the same frustration and they cry for Bole, for someone who can truly recognize their talent and recognize who they really are. And when it comes to the case of leadership, in many ways, this is worse because it seems that all the followers can see who the great leader is. Is it just the person at the top that doesn't? Why is that? Well, this is also reinforced by leadership stories and leadership theorists and leadership development people who continue to identify personal traits and attributes and skills that make great leaders. We see even clearer that the leader we like, the leader we want, even sometimes ourselves, has far more of these successful leadership traits and attributes than the people in power right now. So it seems that the conclusion is obvious, that the people on top are blind. They are not Boles. And this is indeed the most common and very logical explanation of why there are so many incompetent leaders. But sometimes logical isn't enough. You see, this phenomenon of mediocre and incompetent leaders seem to occur very often. It's not just one or two incidents. It's not even one or two cultures or one or two industries. It occurs across cultures, across history, across institutions. So if we really want to understand the leadership so that we can take advantage of the phenomenon, we must take a different perspective. Hi, my name is Dennis. This video is a part of a larger series about leadership. This video is designed to stand on its own, but if you enjoyed it and decide to follow the series, you will have a more comprehensive understanding on leadership because the series progresses layer by layer. So in this video, we focus on institutional leadership because most of our everyday lives occur in institutions, such as a company, a government, a political party, a religious community, a school, or a university. Because of this, our lives are shaped by institutional leaders. What is unique about institutional leadership is that a leadership position, such as a department leader, a CEO, a governor, a bishop, or a minister, is not appointed by the followers, but instead it is appointed by the people above. So if we truly want to understand why there are so many mediocre leaders, we must take on the perspective of the institution, of the authorities. Because when we normally talk about great leaders, great heroes, we actually take the perspective of a follower. How we understand great leaders is that they are great because they're gonna make our lives better, right? Because we are suffering. I want someone who can listen to my concerns. They understand what I am going through, and their leadership is helping us, helping me gain a better life. That is what a better leader is. And that is why I would follow that person, right? That, however, is a follower's perspective. Of course, you might say that institution would also want leaders that people want to follow. Only when people are following this leader that they would work with high motivation, enthusiasm, right? So they could produce more, produce better. Yes, of course. But from an institutional perspective, there's something far more important than selecting just somebody that followers would follow. Imagine this, you are starting a business. You're by yourself. At this point, you have full control, 100% control over your operation, right? You get to decide exactly how to interact with your customers. You control the quality of your product. You control exactly how you're going to advertise your services and products. And you control exactly how to respond to your customer complaints. So you have full control over everything. But then why do you hire somebody? When you hire somebody, you lose some part of your control. And you know when you hire somebody, they're not going to do exactly what you want. Of course, the answer is easy, right? It's because you don't have enough time. You don't have enough attention to focus on everything. By delegating your tasks, you have time to focus on different things. And you need to do that in order for your organization to grow. So what you do is you trade a part of your control for the business's capacity to grow, because otherwise it cannot grow beyond your capacity. So this is the same as a kingdom. Really, even the best governor, you can only govern in person 1 or 2 villages. But then when you get someone else to govern those villages, you will have time to expand your control. You can govern more villages. You can start warfare. You can expand your kingdom. And then if you get someone to lead your army, you can create more armies. You can expand further. Eventually, you appointed so many leaders. You became governor of not places. You became governor of leaders. And those leaders are actually the governor of people, right? So that's what actually happens. So in an ideal world, of course, you say, hey, I want to select the best leaders, the most talented people. I am Bole, right? I'm gonna find all the 1,000-mile horses. But unfortunately, in the real world, the worst thing can happen is that when you give up your power and resources, you give it to somebody, they did not act in your favor. Instead, they use your power against you. And this happened a lot throughout history, even today, in today's businesses. The vice president divided the company, took the resources away, it took some of the technology, intellectual property, it took some clients, and it started its own firm. And also nobles, governors in the kingdom turned against the king instead of helping the king to expand the kingdom or govern the kingdom. These are the worst things. Comparatively, you can tolerate mediocre leaders. You can't tolerate people who don't govern as well or who expand your kingdom slowly or your business slowly. Anything is better than somebody is using the resources you gave to go against you. So to avoid this, to minimize this risk is far more important than finding the best talent, because it is actually worse when you find a leader that people love to follow, but that leader functions against you. That is very often how kingdoms fall. how companies split apart. So to make sure that doesn't happen, the first thing you do is to create a very steep hierarchy. Every institution has hierarchy, and the design of hierarchy, even though can be different, the top of the hierarchy always holds the power to decide the fate of everybody below. For example, a CEO has the power to hire or fire all the positions below. He has the power to change the lives of people by promoting them or demoting them. And this power is necessary to create loyalty, to make sure that the people at the lower rank will work according to the command of the people at a higher rank. This is because this hierarchy serves the purpose and the goals of the top. Everyone under must serve the interests of the top. And this is also why in an institution, your power is limited, your power is defined. Because it is designed, the top must have the power to dominate you, to change your whole life. Because only then they can make sure that you will serve their purpose, even if you don't want to. They make sure that the stake of you betraying them is very, very high. This is why every level of the hierarchy can decide the fate of lower levels. And the second mechanism is the people they pick. As you know, in ancient times, you had to be born in the right family to get picked, right? You have to have a noble birth. See, they tell you that nobles are somehow unique and special, but they are not. What is most unique and special about them is that their prosperity is intimately tied to that of the royal family, of the family that started this kingdom. As you know, when a kingdom falls, the entire royal family will be hunted down. Look at the French Revolution. Over 1,000 nobles were executed during that time. When the kingdom falls, these nobles also fall. And because of this, the kingdoms would only hire these people because their prosperity is tied together. So this is also why you'll find more charismatic, skilled leaders at the lower level compared to at the higher level. Well, at lower level, many organizations and institutions still select very talented and skilled people to take on leadership position. But when your influence expands to a certain level, everything changes. In the hierarchical system, the higher you are, the more potential damage you will do to the organization if you act against its will. In many institutions, especially old and big institutions, it is not possible for you to enter certain level, to have certain influence, to have access to certain power without strong relations with the true power at the top. At this dimension, every one of your background counts. Just like in ancient times, you had to be of noble birth. Your age, your gender, your race, ethnicity, religion, your sexuality, everything counts. But just imagine, would you let someone who was not born or grew up in your country to be the president of your country? Especially those that you would consider as your potential enemies. This is because the risk can potentially be higher than the reward. So then in that case, you will just select president only amongst the candidates who were born and grew up in the country, even if the candidate potentially has less skill. But you rather have that than take the risk of someone with a background that you do not fully trust. It is the same today in many, many ways. As you know, every new CEO, when the person is appointed, or the important positions under this person are held by new people. It is because these are the people that the new CEO trusts. This is the same as the change in a department head, right? Important responsibilities are given to the people this person trusts. This is what you would actually do as well if you get appointed to a leadership position, because only then you can make sure that your vision and goals will be executed. Funny enough, in ancient China, Confucius openly said that if you found two people with similar talents, you should privilege the person you trust. Because the ancient Chinese had never separated actual success in the real world as only skills. Not at all. Relationship is a part of everything. It had never been separated. For example, no matter how good somebody's skill is, if this person cannot work with others, they can never achieve real success in the real world. Do you know, when academics, when they talk about Martin Luther King, and heroes like that, they tend to talk about how much people loved him. What they fail to see is that for Martin Luther King to get even his first institutional position, which is a minister in a church, is that he is tightly connected with the church. And everything he does for the people who follow him, there's one thing he must do, is that he must spread Christianity, because that is the condition of the institution that he serves. No matter what he does for the people that follow him, if he functions against the religious institution that gave him the power, he would lose all the power. But instead, a part of his success is that he continued to expand Christianity, which is the institutional goal. His movement continued to gain momentum, is that he continued to receive more and more support from the black churches, as well as other Christian movements. In other words, institutional support was extremely important. Whatever he did for the society, for the people, must be aligned with the institutional purpose and goals. I don't want to say this as morally right or wrong, good or bad. I just want to show you how leadership works, because this is what actually happens. Institutional leadership has always involved the relationship from people above, people at the bottom, as well as your colleagues. It has never just been about the followers. But most people, including academics, only take a follower's perspective. They ignore the importance of the authority above you in your leadership success. There are many ways to build trust. Unfortunately, some can be negative. Sometimes trust among strangers were actually built by doing illegal things, by showing vulnerabilities, by allowing someone else to witness your weakness, your vulnerability, your wrongdoing, or your illegal activities. Like the situation of the Epstein file is actually not necessarily new in the human history. On the surface, the purpose of Epstein's service seems to be providing illegal means of pleasure. But far more importantly, the real purpose of his service is to provide a space and platform for many elites and powerful people to connect with each other and build trust. It is by showing your vulnerability that you gain trust. And it is only after trust is established that you gain access to a dimension in the institution that you previously don't have access to. Let me share with you one potential problem often causes mediocre and even incompetent leaders. Imagine this: when you became a leader, you want to execute your vision. Very often, who you pick are not leaders, but followers. It is very often people pick the best followers to take the leadership position because they know that these people will execute their command. So this is very often why you see mediocre leaders, you see incompetent leaders. They got the leadership position because they were the best followers, not leaders. And this is also one of the reasons why leadership development is rarely successful. Because many institutions, they promote followers and then try to train them to become leaders. This is very different from you picking the leaders in the first place and then enhance their leadership skills. I am only telling you this to help you truly understand institutional leadership. And I hope it can help you in some ways, whether it is for you to just identify what's happening in your organizations, in your city, and in your government, or what do you need to gain a leadership position, to advance your position, and to become more powerful. What was all I've said? Please let me know your thoughts. Do you agree? What do you think? Has this video helped you? Have you gained some insights? Please let me know. My only purpose of making videos is that they can truly contribute to you. But everything I said about institution and institutional leadership might spark a question. You might ask, what about democracy? What about our democratic system? Dennis, you have told us that institution serves the goals and the purpose of the top. But democracy says people rules, right? We get to elect our leader. When this is the case, it means the people rules, not the top. That is a very good question. So, what do you think? Do you think that is the case? Do you feel that you are someone who's participating in ruling your country? Please let me know your thoughts. And perhaps we'll talk about that in the next video. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video on democracy.